Yeah, I mean, my relationship with music and composers had always been really initially, when I first started making short films, I had no idea that you ever had to clear music because none of my films were being seen by anyone. And it wasn't until Where's the Money Ronnie was going into post-production where the Central TV rang up and said, have you got the clearance forms for this Booker T and the MG's track and for this Aretha Franklin bit and the Paul McCartney track and that? And I went, what's a clearance form? And they said, well, if we put this on TV, you'll be sued for about £6 million. You either. So I wrote to I blindly thought they'd watch the film. Paul McCartney would sit and watch it and go, yeah, that's fine. Obviously didn't, and I had to change every single piece of music on there. And I'd made about 60 short films that I can't release because I could change all the music on them, but they wouldn't be what they were. So I've got all of these films where I didn't get an actor, a location agreement. I literally just made 50 or 60 short films without one single bit of permission that are, unless someone, unless they were, I don't know how I can get them to be seen, not to make money off them for myself, but I just literally can't physically, unless you come to my house. I don't think they can stop me doing that. You can drink red wine like you can in France. So I had this thing where I had a really rude awakening, and so when I made 24/7, obviously I'd learned the ropes a bit by then, and I found out that with the music that you want to use, you go to the record companies way before you finish, because you need to know that if they know you've already put it in and you've finished the film, they've got you over a barrel and they'll charge you. I had a Van Morrison track on 24/7. They went to his lawyers. He's famously difficult to get to clear music for, and he wanted £180,000. His people wanted £180,000 to use the track, and so the only way round it was to send the film to his house, and he was one of them people that if he actually liked something, he'd change the price himself, and he watched it and let us have it for virtually nothing, which was so like I learned such a lot on that first feature film that you can make music can make an enormous difference, but sometimes you're bound by the fact that an artist doesn't like the music on something. So for the first few films I never really had composers, and it wasn't really until This Is England, the film, that I used Ludovico Einaudi, and that was the first time. I flew over to see him in Milan, and I was using stuff off his records, but then he was the first person I think that truly wrote something for my film. There was a guy that did some stuff in the Midlands, but I wouldn't class that as something I was ever happy with. The first time I was happy with anything composed was with Ludovico Einaudi, and so now my work is, I've got a slightly wider palette now. I know I can call on composers, but I don't think I'll ever get away from using tracks that I love. I can't. I kind of grew up in a house. My mum was into Motown and soul. My dad was into rockabilly, rock and roll. My sister was into sort of new romantic stuff in the 80s, and I was into punk and skinhead music. So it was like the four stereos playing in that house. I can never get away from that. It was burnt into my soul a bit. So I'll always have a eclectic musical sort of approach. But I try to do it now based on what's needed, so. Yes, mate. Was I inspired to?
Well, were you driven at the beginning to experiment with film techniques, or were you more driven by the story?
Okay, yeah. He was just asking whether I was, when I first started, whether I was driven more by the film technique side of actually, so more in the filmmaking side, or actually telling the story. And it was absolutely the storytelling side, because the first film I made, you want to see the eye lines in that baby. I mean, it is unbelievable. It's like, so, that character's in a front room, the other character's in Jupiter, why are you looking? But they made them funny, in a way. It looked like I was trying to be clever, but I hadn't got a clue. So I was crossing the line, I did everything possible. A very wide shot, intercut to an eye. It was like, I was abysmal, and I learned my craft a bit more as the years rolled by, really. So my work had a charm. It didn't have any technical ability to begin with. And that came gradually later, and I learned to appreciate that the two do go hand in hand, but I'll always be a storyteller first, I think. And, because I'm one of them people, if drama's right, you can stay on one camera, you can just stay on one shot. If a scene's amazing and it's working. So I always start with the actors and believe in the performance, and when I believe the performance, everything else gets added afterwards. I'm not one of them that goes, you know, this isn't working, let's pull a track out, let's do this to make it work. I kind of go, no, this isn't working because it isn't working as before. I'm not going to try and fix it with a clever camera move or a crane. I've got to believe this first, and then everything else is all gravy, if you like. Yes, mate. So the transition from directing Friends to directing, obviously I made Small Time for a few thousand quid with a group of mates on the same street.
Please go to
yes.
reception.
There you go.
Mr. Sands, please go to reception.
So you don't. And I went to meet, the big difference, I was really lucky that Bob Hoskins was a really, really nice guy. And with some of the actors I've met over the years, it could have been a very different experience, because I've met some not so nice people and some really nice people. And so I went to meet him. Yeah, I'll be honest, I was absolutely petrified. I'd never been scared of anything in my life that way. And I was walking into funding bodies going, oh, you know, I can make this. I believed in myself so much, but then all of a sudden when I went from shooting it myself, I realised I'd been really safe, because when I'm making those films myself, no one's funded them really. Self-funded movies, no one has to look at a really crap cut. You know, you can basically only release it or show it to anybody, or just don't show it if it's really crap. But when someone's giving you £1.5 million, you know, honestly, I was ill with it. You know, I think I had an ulcer at the time. I remember walking onto set and wanting to run away, because it was like I hired a transit van for Small Time, and that was it. We just all got in it and all got out of it. I walked onto this set and it was like trucks, people sawing wood, and, you know, carpenters, you know, Mary and Joseph wandering around. I was like, what is this? You know, and all these people that were looking to me to run the show, and I absolutely bottled it. I don't remember the first day. I can see the first shot. I don't remember being there. I was that scared. It was like, you know, because it was gigantic, and so that transit. But like I say, with the help of obviously Bob had seen Where's the Money Ronnie. Stephen Woolley kind of believed in me. You know, after the first couple of days, I started to think I can do this. You know, but having 50 people working for you, from that, a weird little terrace in the middle of Sneinton in Nottingham, to suddenly that, it was massive. But you know, a week in, obviously I got it, and I was a bit better at it. I had a very nice crew, because you can have a crew that can destroy a first-time director if they want to, and you can have a crew that are kind. And I was really lucky that I had a kind crew that let me get through the rubbish bit where I didn't know what I was doing, and they all kind of supported me. I've seen people crumble with a bad producer or a bad DOP or a first that isn't supporting them. You know, if you don't sort of believe or give your director support, you can crush somebody, and that could have crushed me quite happily. If that first week someone had gone, what on earth are you on about, mate? You know, I might have just gone back to what I was doing and not thought. So I was really fortunate, to be honest. I think, yeah, I've got time for one more question. So if anyone wants to ask me how tall I am, or 5'6". Yes, mate.
What's the best advice that you can give either a producer or director on their first feature on the plane in Norway? What's the best advice you can give to a new producer or director that's making their first feature film?
Okay. I mean, I think if you want to make your first film, I mean, obviously the stuff I talked about earlier on, which was if you're getting rejected everywhere, try and find a way to kind of make it. And obviously if it's a feature film, that's a big undertaking, so maybe it's create a 10-minute teaser, maybe create, you know, my attitude was I can't get into a film festival, so I'm going to create my own one. And, you know, obviously that, you know, doesn't always work, but having that kind of appetite really helps. And I think the other thing is, for a first-time director, I would say to do something from the heart rather than something that you think's, you know, because I've seen so many people with their first-time ideas that are copies of other ideas, or really, like, you know, I'm going to make a science fiction, you know, and I can do it for 10 grand. You're kind of going, you know, whereas it's like, if it's a two-hander, or it's a sort of trying to bite off something that you actually can chew is a big thing. And I mean, at the moment I've got maybe 7 ideas that are all in flux, and I think a lot of young producers and directors I come across have been pitching, walking around with one idea for maybe 2 years. And if your idea just falls into a period, say it's a horror, and that horror thing's just started off, or say it's a football factory type thing, and everyone's bored to death of it, and you've just missed the train, you need a range of work to take around with you, I think, and that's one of the problems. I remember it myself. I wanted to make Where's the Money Ronnie. I couldn't think about anything else. I had nothing else up my sleeve. And I, if I hadn't gone out and made it, I'd have been just wheeling that around till today, and it's kind of like, so I think as a producer and a director, that's really important. And I think one of the key things, a really massive thing, which I've seen happen a lot at local level, is where a kid will get funding and he'll have a producer and he'll have people that he's been working with on his own films, and then the people that give you the money say, well, you can't, we'll take you on and we'll give you some money, but you have to use this producer, and they change everything about you. And that, at the time, you see people go, oh, that's okay, if I have to, I have to. But they don't realise how pronounced an effect that has on their filmmaking. If you've come through with people, it's a bit like the X Factor when they say, I don't like the band, but I like you, and they go, oh, I'll audition on my own. Sometimes those people are really important, and they might not be as technically great as another producer, they might not have the experience, but they maybe know you and make you feel comfortable. And that can be massive. I've got a family in Warp Films and a family in the cast of This Is England that's really difficult for other people. They can't break that down, and it's really, really been paramount to my work to choose people by personality rather than by CV. And I just took on an editor. The first editor, we did the first episode and it kind of stopped working, and I auditioned some editors, and I had people with massive experience, big CVs, and a guy came in that had been editing Central News, and that's what he'd done. And I just said to my producer, I love that kid, I think he's going to be amazing. And he's just edited the last 2 episodes of the series, and he's probably the best editor I've ever worked with. And he was editing local news. So I've never, ever, with actors, I'll take on someone with no experience, and I'll do it in crew as well. If I like someone and they're like-minded and they've got that appetite and that passion and they're tuned in, I'll take them on at any stage. And I think sticking with people that you trust is vital. Okay, thanks ever so much, everybody.